I'm Rosalind Carita, and this is History and Heritage. And today I am at Fort Defiance. This is a wonderful interpretive center that we have right here in Clarksville. If you want an opportunity to really learn about our history, particularly the history of Clarksville during the Civil War, this is the place to do it. Stay with us. Today we're going to learn about Clarksville's role in the Civil War.
I'm Jim Lawrence here today just to share with you about the kettles that go out every year at Christmas time. Just know that all the money that you put in here goes to help the families that we serve each year with food, also with toys. And this year we have 639 families signed up, which is equivalent to almost 1,900 children and seniors that will get a gift from the Angel Tree this year. And the monies that you give in the kettle will help to supply the food and the toys that they get this year at Christmas time. And also, to volunteer to ring the bell. That helps us in so many different ways. That means we don't have to pay anyone. That means all the money then goes to help those individuals. So if you'd like to volunteer, then please call our number. It's on the bottom of the screen. This Christmas, we need you to help volunteer to help the Salvation Army do the most good in our community, helping those that are needy in our community.
Welcome back. I have with me today William Parker. Now, I know that you are over the Interpretive Center, but do you have an official title?
I am the historical interpreter here.
Okay.
That is my official title.
Okay, and when we say interpreter, this particular place is called an Interpretive Center. And the way I understand that is that you really make an effort to teach people. It isn't just you walk in and hope, you yourself have to read every single thing. This is interactive. I mean, you have made it so that people can't help but learn something if they come in here. That's correct.
That is our goal here, to teach people.
Okay.
To teach people what happened here in Clarksville during the war, and to give them it almost takes them back and makes them feel like they're back in the 1860s, and that is our goal.
And I think that the very first piece of that, and I think that's so important, is that you make people feel, they feel the history. And this very first area, you have artifacts, and I know that whenever I see clothing, and you really get to see that person. See, I was about their size. I could wear that dress.
You're exactly right. That's right.
So we have clothing that is this like something from the period, or was it actually from the period?
Some of this is from the period, some of it is not, but they are very good reproductions. This dress here, it's funny you brought up this dress. I have several people come in and say, honey, you need to be wearing this dress right here. Well, not really, because that means you would be dead. This is a mourning dress.
Oh,
right. Notice the black?
Right.
This lady would have been in mourning.
Okay. And there were plenty of folks to mourn during the Civil War.
Over 600,000.
Enormous
right.
Casualties. So this is a mourning outfit. Mm-hmm. Let's look at now here look like obviously horse saddle. Nice boots. Were these, how old are these? Where did they come from?
This is reproduction gear also.
Okay.
But this is exactly what a Confederate cavalryman would have been wearing during this time period. Mm-hmm. Notice of course, the cavalry boots, mm-hmm. the double-barrel shotgun.
Very high boots.
High boots, the double-barrel shotgun.
Right.
Of course, the saddle. The battle jacket, it is simply, or a battle shirt, it's simply a shirt. They didn't have formal uniforms this early.
Right.
And they would have just worn a battle shirt.
And I know that a lot of our reenactors, I mean, we were so lucky to come up here that day, they had these on, and there are actually places that make these vintage clothing, different styles out of the original cloth, and it was really jean cloth, wasn't it?
That is absolutely correct. It was jean cloth. And reenactors today are becoming so dedicated to authenticity that some of them are called stitch counters.
Oh, really?
They actually count the stitching on there to make sure it is correct. The pockets have to be correct, or some units won't let you in unless you were that authentic looking.
They are very particular.
That's exactly right.
And so back in the 1860s, if I recall, there actually was an event where many of the ladies in the community got together to make uniforms. And so our guys from here had uniforms that were made primarily by wives and mothers who stitched them up.
That's right. And flags also. They were very, that's why the flags were so important to them. So many of them were made.
They were made
by
at
the
home.
Exactly.
Of course.
That represented their home, their family,
Right.
Was that flag.
And it's very easy to love a symbol like that. And then we have some things over here that are actual artifacts.
These are my favorite artifacts here.
Okay, and artifacts means this is real. This is not a reproduction.
That's correct.
Somebody found this probably on site.
On site.
Okay.
That is exactly right. What we have here in this display case, we have different bullets that were used here. We have the mini ball, we have the musket ball, the U.S. buckle, some coat buttons, and one of my favorite artifacts, the little 3-tined fork.
Wow.
If that could talk.
Yeah.
And it was found right here on the site.
Right. Isn't that amazing?
Right.
Pipe?
A clay pipe that survived 150 years.
That's unbelievable.
Right.
And of course, I love archaeology. I really wanted to be Indiana Jones. So I love this stuff. So everything was found right here on this land.
The bayonet and the sword were actually found at Fort Donelson.
Okay.
But that's close enough.
It is close enough.
To where we put those here. And I want to add something else too. Every bit of these items here were either loaned or donated to us, and we really appreciate the public loaning us or donating these artifacts.
Right. Tell me a little bit about this cartridge box.
This is a very special artifact here. This was, it was donated by somebody who just happened to visit here.
Oh, really?
Yes. They had this in their collection. He was from Florida.
Oh.
He had this in his collection for since 1986. And he thought it would be better, the public can see it up
right.
here.
How
this
generous.
was captured by Confederate soldiers. This is a Union cartridge box.
Right.
Captured by a Confederate soldier. He carried it through the entire war, and it managed to survive. We have his name here, and his initials, MHD, are actually scratched on the back of the cartridge box.
So we know who it belonged to. Incredible
Priceless.
that way. Yes, that
Right.
is. And you know, while we're talking about people that have donated, all of this land up here at Fort Defiance was very generously donated by Judge Sam Bowes and his wife Dee. And you know, we couldn't have this if it had not been for their generosity. And for many years, lots of groups of people, lots of individuals really worked to put this together. I mean, city and county and state, and it is a credit to Clarksville because this is old, it's irreplaceable, and this could have been a parking lot somewhere so easily.
Or condos.
Or condos.
The view, when we get outside, you will see the view up here is spectacular.
It's the best. It is the best. And I wanted to ask you about this banner when we're talking a little bit about the pride of Clarksville. It has Clarksville, Tennessee on it.
The local Confederate veterans, Sons of Confederate Veterans group, they were originally called Camp Fort Defiance.
Okay.
And this was their flag. They've since changed names now, but this flag was sitting in storage, not being seen, and
Okay.
one of those members donated the flag here, and we have it on display, and it really adds
Oh,
to
it does. It really
to the
sets it
road.
off. I mean, it brings all this together. So now we have seen some of the artifacts, some of the reproductions, and given you a feel for kind of the time. So now we're going to introduce you to some of the people who lived here. And this is a part of the Interpretive Center that really brings it to life, because you get to hear voices and see faces. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Major Jim Lawrence with the Salvation Army here at the Salvation Army Family Store, and we could really use your help in donations of
turkeys, hams, coats, and warm clothes.
And anything that you give to us will help those that are less fortunate in our community. And also, if you come in and volunteer at the thrift store or the family store, it would be great, because you could separate clothes that goes to those that are less fortunate in our community. Thank you very much for what you're doing in our community.
At Salvation Army.
Now we're going to learn about some of the actual people who lived here. Some lived and died here. And this Faces and Places Connected to Clarksville. This mural, I think, is the latest thing that you've added.
Absolutely, that's correct. It was just put in about 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Tell us some of these great people.
So many people were coming up here and saying, you know, you need to have more Clarksvillians in here, since this is obviously a Clarksville site here. Well, this is a wonderful effort right here. Some of the more colorful figures we have on here, one of the famous ones, Colonel Woodward. Very short, maybe he had short man syndrome. If you see his sword, it's nearly as tall as he is. So he was a very short character, but he was definitely full of energy. He led the attack back into Clarksville, where he recaptured Clarksville, recaptured the fort, captured the whole Union garrison. And it was a series of bluffs that led to this, a very interesting story.
Well, it is a great story, and I feel like I've gotten to know this guy. At the museum, they also had exhibits, and this is the fellow who, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was a red-haired Irishman.
That's exactly right.
And he had lots of gumption, and he is the one who pulled off what you described as the retaking of Clarksville. And he did it without really firing a shot.
That's correct.
And he just pulled off the greatest bluff there ever was. He is the one who took stovepipes, is that right? Or put them in logs, somehow made it look like they were cannons.
That's right.
Well, tell us a little bit.
He had tree logs.
Logs, okay.
And painted them black.
Okay.
To where they looked like artillery pieces, and bluffed the Union commander into surrendering. And it was, needless to say, an embarrassment.
Oh, yeah.
The Union commander was court-martialed for it. So it was it really raised the morale of the people in Clarksville when they saw these dirty, dusty,
bedraggled, hard-living guys.
That's right. Came riding back into town. So.
Isn't that something? So they retook the town. And just so that folks have kind of an idea, when we say we retook the town, the reason they retook it was because we had lost it. Tell us how that happened. Tell us how that happened.
This fort has the distinction, I've never heard of another fort. It exchanged hands 3 times during the war, and there was never a shot fired here. Too bad all wars aren't fought like that.
Yeah,
but one side gave up before the fighting began. And the fort originally fell soon after Fort Donelson fell.
Right.
And the Confederate garrison here was small. There were only 3 guns here, and they knew we're not going to be able to hold out against these Union gunboats. So they raised the white flag. So when the Union gunboats rounded the corner, they saw the white flag, and the fort, and of course subsequently Clarksville, were both surrendered.
Right. And so the Union forces were here, and until Colonel Woodward chased them out, this was occupied.
That's correct.
So some of our other characters, okay, we have Colonel Woodward and
something else I want to point out too, that this has really brought this home. This has been up about 3 weeks. I have had 2 people just since I've been here come in and say, that's my great-great-grandfather there.
Oh, wow.
We have that picture at home, and here they are on this mural.
That is really...
And that was one of our goals here.
Right.
That was one of our goals. Some other people we have, Clarksville, Colonel Sugg, CSA. He was the commander of the 50th Tennessee.
Okay.
Of course, a locally raised regiment, fought with distinction at Fort Donelson. A company of the 50th Tennessee are the ones that actually manned the river batteries that defeated the gunboats. That's right. He was mortally wounded at Missionary Ridge during the Battle of Chattanooga.
Okay.
He was wounded and died, I believe, about 2 months later. Right.
So his regiment was raised of Clarksville men.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then another place, we know that this was a hospital, really served as a place. Now, did they only have Confederate soldiers or did they have Union soldiers? Who was in that hospital?
Most of the ones that I have done research on, they were Confederate, and they were wounded from Fort Donelson that were brought here.
Okay.
And this originally started as it was the female academy.
Right.
It was a school. And they brought the wounded soldiers, and of course some of them died there, and they were buried in the back there behind the school by the railroad tracks.
Okay, now when we, here in modern day Clarksville, I know people ask you all the time, where was this?
This set at the corner of Madison Street and Academy Avenue.
Okay.
It's a small street, Academy, and you probably drive right by it. It's before you get to University Avenue, Cumberland Drive.
And do we have anything on the site that marks it?
The only reference to this, and it's not for the Academy, but the bridge there on Cumberland Drive is the Confederate Soldiers Memorial Bridge.
Right.
That is where the Confederate soldiers were buried.
Okay,
right
that gives us perspective.
That's correct.
And of course, look at how this gives us the opportunity to really appreciate how old some of our churches are. I mean, this is the First Presbyterian Church, looks just like it does now.
That's exactly right, just like it.
And then you had pointed out a couple of other folks, and I believe Nanny Haskins. We see Nanny, we hear about her. She kept a great diary. We have lots of her letters. Tell us a little bit about her.
Just like you said, she kept a great diary. And it is priceless, this diary that has survived, that gives us a poignant perspective on what the civilians went through here during the Union occupation.
And I know that Dick Gildry has spent a long time reading those letters and transcribing them and copying them and trying to understand them. So really he gets a lot of credit for us being able to be a piece of that, to really be able to see what life was like on a day-to-day basis.
Dr. Gildry gets a lot of credit for what he has done up
Yes,
here. I'm
he
glad
has.
you brought his name up.
He has done a lot of work. So we have all this mural, kind of a collage of the faces, but then you take it another step. I mean, we can see them, but we actually get to hear them. So take us and let us hear them.
Okay, sounds good.
So in this room, William, we have all kinds of people that I see their picture, and this is a great setup. Tell me kind of what is our goal here?
This describes not only life in Clarksville during the Civil War, but the military action here, the type of weapons that were used here, the wonderful exhibit we have of the gunboat here.
Okay, and we'll take a look at that. So we have all of these, again, sort of getting us into life. And we also have, I mean, this is very interesting to me that you have these pictures of, 6 people, and you have set them up in a kind of unusual way. Tell me what you did.
That's correct, and it's so unusual that sometimes I actually have to warn people before they walk back here. These pictures talk to you.
I love it.
When you step in front of them, they tell you a history. Some people have come running out of here thinking they've heard a ghost. So, I have to warn them, it's not a ghost, that's part of the interpretation here.
Yeah, and that's what's so neat about this, is in many museums you go in and you have to read everything. And even if you love it, there's just so much that you can read so fast. But here, you can walk in and the people will talk to you.
You hear the voices.
Yes, yes. Okay, so you picked 6 different folks. Who all did you pick?
We have a homemaker, which obviously half the population here would have been women.
Right, kind of Nanny Haskins people.
That's right, and this one is Sarepta Jordan, who left a diary also.
Okay.
So along the same lines as Nanny Haskins.
And they talk about regular daily things. How did I get something to make for dinner? How am I going to keep the kids warm?
Which is so important, such an important part of survival during this time period.
Yeah.
That interpretation is very important.
And then you have, who are the other folks that you have?
We have a slave, which of course would have been here in Clarksville during the Civil War and prior to. We have a merchant, and on the backside we have a Confederate soldier and a Union soldier.
Perfect.
Yes, and each one gives you an interpretation when you walk by.
Oh. Let's walk over and show folks how this really does work.
Okay.
Our town is now garrisoned by about 3,000 Federals under command of Colonel Bruce. Their pickets are at every inlet and outlet of the town, and no one, white or black, is allowed ingress or egress without a pass from the colonel. They seem determined to cut us from everything and everywhere.
So now we've seen, kind of what people wore. We have a feel for the period, and we got to listen. But tell us what really happened at Fort Defiance. I mean, why do we have these earthworks here? Why is this at this particular location in Clarksville?
That's a very good question, and believe it or not, most of the people that come up here don't know that. And that's why we're here. Fort Defiance sits at the corner of the Red River and the Cumberland River.
And in river talk, they usually say the confluence.
The confluence.
Right. So it's it's where they come together, where they turn the corner, where they become one. Is that what we would say, the confluence?
That's exactly right.
Okay, so the Red and the Cumberland meet. And so anything that came up the river would have been forced to go by this land that is up on a bluff.
200 feet.
Okay, so we're 200 feet above the river, and any Union boats, gunboats, that wanted to take Clarksville, this is how they would have to do it. And they were coming from Donaldson.
That's correct.
Okay, so tell us.
Of course, we knew that the quickest way that they would be able to get here would be by river.
Okay.
Okay. And when Fort Donaldson fell, we knew this was going to be next.
Right.
And sure enough, on the 19th, 2 gunboats approached Clarksville. One of them was the Conestoga, which is a timber-clad, and the other one was the USS Cairo,
Okay.
which we have a model of
And this
here.
is the Cairo.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's an ironclad.
Okay, so we always think of the Merrimack and the Monitor, but this is a different one.
Oh,
This is
absolutely.
okay.
There were numerous ironclads that were constructed prior to and during the war.
Okay, so this is a Yankee gunboat.
That's correct.
And it would have come down the river, and Clarksville knew that in order to keep the Union from taking Clarksville, they had to chase the boat off. I mean, essentially, wouldn't that have been the thinking? We have to find
Yes.
a way to prevent them from coming down the river.
That's correct.
Okay, so they went to the bluff, and we call it Fort Defiance, and I know that people come up here sometimes and they're looking for the stockade,
That's
but
right.
there isn't a stockade because they didn't have that much time. So what did they do? What did the colonel say to the guys?
You're right. So many people come up here and say, well, where's the buildings? Where's
Yeah, yeah.
the watchtowers and so forth? All this fort had to do was stop a cannonball.
Okay.
That's it. It was comfort was not in the recipe here at all.
Right.
And if you remember, the Civil War was supposed to be a short war.
That's right.
So why
Ask
build
any of
all
these guys.
Yes, yeah. Why build all these buildings?
Yeah.
It's just going to be a short war. And we knew that now Clarksville was an important city to capture, but the real prize for the Union forces was about 40 miles south of here. Of course, the capital of Nashville.
Right.
And once
They were on their way to Nashville.
they were on their way, and once Fort Defiance fell, it was wide open,
Okay.
straight to Nashville.
So the guys went up to the bluff and they built earthworks.
That's correct.
And so essentially they made mounds. And the purpose was to get behind the mound, and the cannonballs would hit the mound. I mean, that's the whole point of it.
That's it.
So when our guys were all up there, and how many people were up here?
Less than 100. It was a small garrison. If you put it in perspective to Fort Donelson, there were about 15,000 Confederates there.
Okay.
Yeah. And you mentioned the earthworks stopping the cannonball. They were extremely effective at Fort Donelson. Matter of fact, I think I mentioned this before, the guns actually defeated the gunboats, the river batteries did, at Fort Donelson.
Okay, and we do have a cannon up here.
We do.
And at that time, how many cannons did they have?
3.
Three.
There would have been 3 in the fort.
Okay.
2 24-pounders and 1 42-pounder.
Okay, so as they were coming up the river and we build up the earthworks, we're shooting at them.
That's correct.
But in this instance, we said we can't win it. And so they put up a white flag.
Another reason for the white flag, I had a school group come through last week, and a little girl in there just could not get past the fact that the fort surrendered without a fight. She asked me about that over and over. We wanted to spare the city of destruction, which would have happened.
Okay.
If this fort had put up a fight, these Union gunboats would have been firing on the fort. The rounds would have been going over the fort, landing in the city, and it would have angered the Union Army, of course, and they probably would have not been kind to the city.
Okay, so now this kind of comes together. So this is actually what one of the gunboats looked like, and you also have some of the weapons that were used by the cavalry and by other. Tell me a little bit about some of these. We always like to see the sabers and the guns. And
this is the men like to come to this part here. That's right. Of course, the cavalry and the infantry both. The sword would have been carried by a cavalryman, model 1840. That was nicknamed the wrist breaker because how heavy the thing is.
The wrist breaker.
That's what that was, and that was a favorite.
An 1840 cavalry saber. So it was actually designed earlier than the Civil War.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's right.
Now over here, you know, we talked a lot about the earthworks and the cannonballs, and this is a cannonball.
That's correct.
You know, when we talked about this, you really taught me things I didn't know about cannonballs. So tell us how the cannonball worked. I know that sounds like, of course you should know this, but these look different than what we think.
It's a lot more difficult than what a lot of people think, okay? This is a sampling here of the type of artillery that would have been used here at the site.
Okay, for Fort Defiance, not from the boat.
That's correct,
okay.
Inside the fort.
Okay.
That's right. We have a 12-pound cannonball, a 32-pound cannonball, and then the smallest, a 6-pound cannonball.
Okay.
And the, you notice the cloth.
The stuff, yeah.
Stuff on the back.
Yeah.
Right. That held the powder. So many people think that they just picked the cannonball up and just rammed it down and shot it out. It actually came attached to the powder charge.
Okay, so this is what it really looked like.
When they took it out of the ammunition limbers,
okay,
that is what it looked like.
So they picked up the whole thing, put it in, and then what?
Now, of course, these were muzzle loaders.
Okay.
We're all used to breech loaders today.
Ah, okay.
They rammed it down the top, and they would put a friction primer in, and then that friction primer, when they pull the lanyard, is what set off the actual charge here that shot the cannonball out. Okay,
so that's what we had here at Fort Defiance that they would have shot at the ironclad.
That's right.
Were any of these found here?
None of these were, but like I said, this is representative of what they would have had here.
Okay. These, as well as all kinds of other real artifacts, I mean reproductions and artifacts, are all right here at Fort Defiance. And you know, an interpretive center of this quality, I would expect that you would charge people to come in, but I understand that's not true, that this is free.
We could charge people, but we don't. It is free. Come on by any time. Everything here is free. Inside, walking out on the grounds. We've had nearly 10,000 visitors through.
That's incredible. Lots of school kids.
Lots of school kids. And we've had nearly every state represented and probably half dozen foreign countries.
that is wonderful. What a credit to Clarksville. And you know, one of the things that we really try to do with this show, and it is history and heritage. It's our history, it's our heritage. And this is a place that you can bring your family, that you can do something together that is wholesome and good, and it's free. So I don't think you can get any better than that. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, William. This has been marvelous. Remember, this is your history and your heritage.